Top of the top, y'all. Today we're gonna go over something that continues to come up in questions that people ask me, as well as in my own wholesaling business. Okay, so what we're gonna talk about today is how to properly wholesale a property that has tenants already in place. Okay, whether those tenants are good paying tenants or tenants that are just squatting there and not paying the rent. Either way, there are some questions you want to make sure you ask your seller, and there are some precautions you want to make sure you take so you can ensure a smooth closing process either for you or your other end buyer if you're not picking up the property yourself. All right, let's get into it, y'all. First couple questions you want to ask the seller when you're in negotiations or whenever you're working through the deal. All right, you want to know how long have the tenants been there. All right, this is going to let you know their track record. Are they consistent? Are they inconsistent? You know, have they been there a long time? Are they loyal? Are they dependent in the event that you or your end buyer are going to keep them on as renters? All right. Next, you want to ask if they're paying rent. If they are paying rent, are they paying it on time? If they are paying on time, how much are they paying? Okay. And so you want to know these questions just like the last one in case you or your end buyer are going to keep these people as tenants. You know exactly what the situation is. If they need more time to move out, you know how much you're going to be able to make in rent, and so on and so on. All right. Now, after you ask those questions, you want to see if the seller can provide proof that the tenants are paying. All right. Now, some sellers might object to that. They don't want to get you in their business. Some just might be really sloppy with their accounting and they don't have any receipts to show. They just take the money and do whatever they do with it. But some may have cashier's checks, receipts, or bank statements or things like that that they can show you. And the more honest the seller, the more likely it's going to be a smooth transaction. So if they're not hiding that information from you, you definitely want to ask for it, and you definitely want to use that to your advantage when you're purchasing a property with the tenant in place. All right. You also want to make sure that you can get a copy, even if that's email, scan, whatever, a copy of the current lease agreement if there is one in place. All right. A lot of times sellers might be living month to month, and that's probably a better situation for you because you don't have to deal with them. All right. But if there is a current lease in place with the seller of the property and the current tenant, you have to honor that lease agreement. All right. You or your other end buyer, if you're not picking up the property yourself. All right. That current lease agreement has to be honored. So you want to see what they're paying. If there are any clauses in there, you know, that say if they go without a job, they cannot pay for 3 months, whatever it is, you have to honor those things. You want to know if you have the ability to raise the rent, or are they locked in at this price for 6 more months or 12 more months, whatever the case may be. You want to have as much information as possible when you're picking up that property with a tenant in place, or if you're selling that property to somebody else. You want to be able to give them all the information you have up front so they can decide whether or not they want to take it on, and you don't have to worry about your buyer running away from the deal later down the line because you didn't give them all the proper information. All right. Next, what you must know is only the seller can evict the tenant. Okay. Just because y'all are in contract together does not mean that you can go and start the eviction process. If your seller wants to evict the tenant before they sell, then the seller has to go through that process on their own. Okay. You know, go down to the courthouse, fill out the paperwork, file a petition for a court date, have the court hearing, and then have the marshals come and kick them out. All of that before you buy it. Now, if you're buying it literally with the tenant in place and the seller is not going to be evicting them, then it's going to be your job to evict them, okay? But only after the sale is closed and has been fully executed, all right, at the title company. Only then can you or your end buyer start the eviction process. So that's very important to know. But what we still like to do, once we, have all the information from the seller and we know exactly what's going on, if it's a situation where they don't want to evict the tenant or they don't want to start the eviction process, we still send them a certified letter that says, hey, this property is being sold by the owner. This is their reason, but now they are selling it to a third party. I am that third party. I'd rather not have to evict you. I'd rather talk to you, see how we can work it out, whether you stay here or whether we help you to move on, and help you financially or however that may be with your transition. We want to see if you are willing to work with us because regardless of how you feel, the property is being sold. All all right? We always send that letter, give them an opportunity to reach out to us, kind of see where they are at, see if they're willing to work with us. That always makes the transaction easier, but sometimes people are just stubborn. They won't pay rent. They are mad at the landlord for selling the property. I mean, tons of crap, man, that may not even be your fault, but you're taking it on because you are accepting equitable interest in this property, meaning you're gaining the ability to buy or sell it. All right. So now this is your problem, unless the seller is going to evict that tenant before you purchase the property. But that's not what we're talking about today. You definitely want to know when it comes to the exit strategy that if you're not keeping this property and you're going to be wholesaling it to an end buyer, they're going to at least want a 10% discount on this property just for taking on the headache. All right. Now, if the tenant is being cooperative, they're getting out soon or whatever the case may be, it may not be as big of a problem if that's the case. But if they are giving them a hard time and they're not paying and things like that, and the end buyer has to go through the eviction process and going to court and all of that, they're going to want at least a 10% discount. And just to give you an idea with simple numbers, if normally you picked up the same exact property and there was no tenant in it, you ran the numbers, ran your comps, took away a repair costs and all of those things like that, and you ran your numbers efficiently, and you can sell this to an end buyer for $100,000. That same property with a tenant inside, you're probably going to have to accept about $90,000 for that property. All right, and that's just general. That's what we've came to literally learn firsthand. We've done several properties like this where we pick up with a tenant. In all of our cases, the tenant really wasn't being cooperative. So the seller knew, we knew, and the seller knew that they were going to have to take on a big risk here and probably take on months of, loan payments and things like that, trying to force the tenants to get out of the house. So we honored that 10%, and that's just an average of what the several deals that we have done end up coming out to. We put them out at regular price, just to kind of see where people's interest was at, and people kind of talk us down, the ones who are even willing to accept a property with a tenant in place. So you have to know that the buyer pool is going to be smaller. All buyers are not going to want to pick up a property with a tenant in place, and if they do, they're going to want about a 10% discount, all right? And that's just something you can count on. What we also like to do is try to just, like I said, we try to work with the tenants, see if they're willing to work with us, and if they are, most of the time, we just try to do cash for keys, all right? And that just simply means you move out, completely move out, give us the keys, and we're just going to give you a check, okay? Whether that's $3,000, $5,000, whatever. We're going to make it short, simple, straight to the point, cash for keys, all right? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because people still may not have credit or transportation or really another means to find another place to stay. So they kind of just stuck where they are. So sometimes cash for keys doesn't work, sometimes it will. And there y'all have it. Those are just a couple questions you want to ask and a couple tips to consider when you are picking up a property with the tenant in place, whether you are buying that property for your own portfolio or wholesaling it to another end buyer, all right? Those are some things you definitely want to keep in mind. Keep learning, keep earning. Like and subscribe if you picked up any value from this video, all right? That inspires me and encourages me to keep going and keep trying to provide value for y'all, and that's what I'm going to keep on doing, really, whether y'all like and subscribe or not, but it still helps. Till the next time, y'all, tap in.